You're in Nashville, or?
I'm at a hotel in Charlottesville, Virginia.
Oh
We
goodness. Okay.
just wrapped our rehearsals in Nashville, and our first day of the tour is Thursday. So we loaded into this arena, and we're going to do some run throughs tonight,
Right.
tomorrow, and then the first show is Thursday. So
Awesome. And
yeah,
who are you working with now? Are you still with Kenny Chesney?
yeah. It's
Nice.
kind of a funny little world to be in. I
Yeah.
never thought I'd be playing
Oh,
modern country, but
looks like we're live.
what? Woo!
Yeah. I don't see a counter or anything, but okay. Oh, here we are.
Wow.
I see it. Okay, great. Hi, everybody. We
Hello.
are live
Hi.
here on the Ampeg SVT time. We are celebrating International Women's Month, and I have Christelle with me, Gaylan Dorsey, Harmony Kelly. Gail, where are you right now?
I am in Paris. France. I'm actually had a night off. I've been working since last year, actually kind of the last couple of years, with an artist here named Matthew Shadid, who goes by just the letter M. And I worked on his last album, Rivalite, and we toured last year, and we just started a second round of shows in France for 2023. So I'm kind of based here, moving around France most of the months, which is really great to get to see the country. And this time we're going to the Reunion Island, which is near Madagascar. No,
Oh, yeah.
we're going to play in Reunion Island, and we're also going to play in Montreal and Quebec. So he only speaks French and sings in French. So it's French-speaking countries that we're going to. But I'm in Paris. Wonderful.
And speaking of French and France, Christelle, you are also in France right now?
Yeah, I'm in France right now, at Le Mans exactly. But I'm from Madagascar, and we just moved in France about 2 years ago.
Nice.
Beautiful. Very nice. And Harmony, you are currently calling us from we're in the road right now, right?
Yes, I'm coming to you live from a hotel in Charlottesville, Virginia. We just got here early this morning from Nashville, so we wrapped our Nashville rehearsals, and then we are loading into the arena here in Charlottesville, and we're going to do some production run-throughs tonight and tomorrow, and then do our first show on Thursday. So
beautiful. And you're with Kenny.
Yeah, Kenny Chesney. Yep. So
awesome
for me to be here with you guys. This is great.
Yeah,
thank you. Really, really cool. Yeah, I'm excited to get to see all of you.
Let's start with, like, I'm always curious, like, and people ask me this question all the time: why the bass? Why not guitar? Why not drums? Why not piano? What was it about the bass? Did it choose you? Did you choose it?
It chose me for sure. It chose me for sure. I'm still, like, guitar is still my favorite instrument in the world, the 6-string guitar, acoustic, electric. I fell in love with guitar when I was, I don't know, since I could hear. And like the first guitars I heard as a kid, on just Jimi Hendrix to Neil Young to Terry Kath from Chicago was one of my heroes. Mark Farner from Grand Funk Railroad, all these guitars. I love this, And then there was Nancy Wilson from Heart, who came along and made me think I could actually play the guitar. It wasn't crazy. Like, she was my first female sort of iconic character that I saw, and I went, yeah, I can do this. But then, I'm self-taught, so I don't read music, and I don't know theory, and I don't know any of that stuff. A little bit. I mean, what I've assimilated over the years, and just kind of my own kind of way of making charts, and my understanding of how to, to communicate with music. But I really, I wanted to work as a guitar player, and in the we're talking the mid-70s now, and I don't know if any of you were born then, but like around 1975, 76, I was hoping to get work as a teenager to play guitar, and all the bands that were making any money, like this is in Philadelphia, that were making, you know, like doing parties or top 40 gigs, they all were guitar players, and they were looking for bass players, or they were looking for drummers or keyboard players. But it seemed like everybody played the guitar. So I just, you know, I had a little trio of my own in my neighborhood with a couple of guys across the street, you know, from school, and I played guitar, and there was bass and drums, and we used to rehearse in my mother's basement. So they would leave their gear in my mom's house, and in the summer I'd go downstairs and lay there, and I'd play around on the bass and play a little bit on the drums. And so I thought, you know, bass is a lot easier than the guitar. It's only one note at a time, and so I'm gonna go for one of these bass gigs. Why not? You know, and I got the gig. I went for an audition on the bass, and I got the gig. So the bass kind of chose me. It was just temporary. But then as I started to play more, I was like, wow, this instrument is really more than I thought it was. I think a lot of people interpret the bass as something, you know, oh, well, maybe not so much anymore, but I remember people would always say, oh, the bass is like, it's in the background. It's like no one knows, you can't really hear it. It's like it's low. It's like, it's not, you know, the bass player was never particularly cool. You know, it wasn't out front. But what I learned with time is that the bass actually is in any ensemble, whether it's bass on the like left hand of the keyboard or whatever, is the most important. It's driving the whole song, the whole piece of music, the whole composition is really, it's like it's got the steering wheel. And the hardest way, not the hardest, but the kind of most shocking way of learning that was when you make a mistake on the bass. When you go the wrong way and the whole thing kind of falls apart. It's not so much the same when maybe a guitar has a funny chord or you kind of hit a bent note or whatever. But when that bass drops out or just goes the wrong way, it's like it just the whole earth moves. And I was like, wow, not only is this an amazing instrument, it's a huge responsibility to be a bass player. So sorry I rambled, but that's how I chose. So the bass chose me, and then the more I played it, the more I loved like that not to be in control of things, but just how much you can do with this instrument. It's not in the background. You can be melodic, it can be rhythmic, it can be harmonic, you can, you know, play chords. I mean, it was like endless, and I was just amazed to discover the instrument. And then now at this point, I love it beyond belief. It's been very good to me.
So when you said your ear started out with guitar and with guitar players and the Jimi Hendrixes and the Nancy Wilsons. So when you shifted to bass and your consciousness shifted, were there any players that stuck out to you as bass players?
Joe Osborne. Anyone familiar with Joe Osborne? Joe Osborne was, and I knew his playing, but I didn't really learn his name until later. He's the bass player on like the Carpenters, the Partridge Family, America, Barbra Streisand. I mean, the list is endless. He's was a very, very famous session player. And what I liked about his playing was he was very melodic. Another one similar to him, who most people would know now, is Leland Sklar. Lee Sklar, same kind of thing. This beautiful, you know, the bass part on, say, the beginning of Mahogany, the theme to Mahogany, the Diana Ross song. You know, it's like this beautiful like that's the kind of bass playing that I really, really love. I did like as well. Of course, I loved, you know, Larry Graham. Brothers Johnson, Louis Johnson, which is the reason I played the Stingray. When I saw Louis Johnson with a Stingray, I just thought, wow, that's the coolest sounding and looking bass I had ever seen, because everybody seemed to have a Fender bass. Yeah. But then suddenly I saw this Music Man, and I was like, it's different and it's cool, and I always wanted one. And I love this bass in terms of how much you can do with it. It's very, very
versatile.
Versatile, yeah.
Yeah, right on. Awesome. Harmony, what about you? How did you come to the bass?
I mean, I guess I would say that it chose me as well. I feel like I got a little bit of a late start. You know, I started playing bass when I was 17, and my dad played guitar and wrote songs, but there was never any sort of push for me to play guitar or, you know, anything like that. And I grew up listening to, you know, all my, you know, there's always records playing in my house. My parents were listening to these really sort of drum and bass sort of R&B, you know, like the band, Little Feat, Taj Mahal, the Beatles, like, and for whatever reason, my ear got to this place where I would always hear bass first. And I don't know what it is. I can't really explain it other than just to say that I was really drawn to that instrument and to that sound. And so at some point when I was 17, I asked my parents for a bass for Christmas, and you know, my dad took me shopping to this really great little, you know, music store in Austin that doesn't exist anymore, and we got this great, you know, Fender Mexican made key bass, and I got like an old PV TNT amp, and
TNT, yeah,
for Christmas to come, and then I got it, and I remember just, you know, Gail, it's really great for me to hear that you are self-taught, because I am also self-taught, and I always, you know, as maybe some of us, or maybe a lot of us do, kind of struggle with a little bit of that imposter syndrome.
yeah. Oh boy, my,
But you know, yeah, right. I mean, and coming from, or being sort of in this, I don't live in Nashville, but I'm definitely in that world. So many of the people that I play with, my peers there doing sessions, they all kind of in that schooled world,
right?
And I don't come from that place, and so my teachers were all of these bass players on all these records that my dad and my mom were listening to. And so I remember when I started playing, I would sit on their living room floor and just put on a record or a CD, and I would pick out the bass parts to all the songs. And, you know, I kind of found that, you know, there were times when I was growing up that I really felt like I was missing out on something by not having gone to music school and not having taken lessons, and, you know, not really knowing theory. I mean, I know that we know theory now in a different way, but then I thought, as I got older and more accomplished, that it was actually really valuable. The way that I learned bass was really, really valuable. And I think that because of that, I have, you know, really in tune ears with, I listen really well, and I kind of understand what's going on in like a band situation, because I have to be in that way. And like,
listening.
Yeah. So so those were my teachers, and I would say that the bass definitely chose me. And Gail, I've got Dino's email the other day, and I have to just side note say that I'm a huge Bowie fan, and have been since maybe middle school. And I, you know, was so tickled that you were going to be on this. So
great.
You and hear that you're also self-taught. So that's
amazing. Yeah. We love them. Shout out to Chloe.
Yeah.
And so, Christelle, welcome.
Yeah.
I know you've done a lot. You've done some demo videos for Ampeg, and have really helped out with showing what the amps can do. And so, thank you for that.
Oh yeah, it's a really great pleasure to make the promotion of the new bass.
Yeah.
So for me, I grew up in a musician family. My grandma, my father, and my uncles, my aunties plays guitar. Everybody plays guitar. Our dad raised up in a world of music. He always made us discover a new musician, a new band, especially on jazz and blues. And I remember at 8, exactly, I remember the moment he made us discover the life of Jaco Pastorius. And when I saw him, I had a crush on bass. It was just, the sound makes me feel great, you know. And I told to my daddy, Daddy, I don't want to play guitar as you all. I want to play bass. And he said to me, okay, but you you have to learn guitar first.
Ooh.
So I learned guitar first, and after I switched on bass. But I stopped music at 12 or 13 due to problems of familial. And at 17 or 16, that's why I always say that I didn't choose music. Music chose me. Bass chose me. At at 17, my brother asked me to play guitar and sing at the same time in front of many musicians, the big musicians, just like that. And I didn't play during 4 or 5 years. And I do it. I play the Route 66 on bass, and I sing alone on stage. And it was just a miracle because it's like I never stop bass. You know, it's just a miracle. I really love the instruments. There is some connection of my voice and the bass at the same time. And at this moment, I decided to do my job and to do it professionally. So I really begin music at 16 or 17. But I didn't go to a conservatory or a music school. Fortunately, I had my dad, and he's a really good guitar player. And after I learned music on my own, but I joined harmony about I listen music by my ears, especially. It's really important. But bass is just a miracle in my life.
Yeah, amen.
Yeah.
So when you played that show and you hadn't played in a long time, how did you prepare yourself, like not just musically but mentally, like because it had been so long? And how do you the pre-show, like before the show, what do you?
But I just go to the place to watch a band, and after there was a jam, and that's why my brother forced me go back. I go to the stage, go on stage and play just like that. And then I was what? I didn't play during 5 years, Kai. Leave me alone. I said, no, you have to go on stage.
Good
So
for him.
I even have a time to prepare myself to go on stage at this moment, but it was just like a magic.
Sometimes that's better that you don't have too much time to think about it. You just go in and let the music take care of itself.
Yeah.
We can often overthink whether we're ready or not, or if we're good enough or not, or and sometimes it's we're our own worst critic. But spontaneity is very important.
Yeah.
And willingness to play. We love to play. We're here because we love to play, and so that's what you do. Take your fears and everything with you, and you jump in, and it always seems to work out. Music is a great medicine, a great healer, a great mediator. It's a great everything.
Yeah.
I think.
Do any of you have any pre-show rituals or anything that you do to ground yourself? Or because sometimes you can get pre-show jitters or get nervous, you overthink and you're like, oh, I'm not ready. How do you get to that point where you just make yourself ready? You just throw in
breathing, just deep breathing at this point. Deep breathing, few little hand exercises and things, just stretching. More for not so much my body, but maybe these days my body, because holding that stingray on my shoulder for 2.5 hours every night starts to take its toll. But so just some hand warm-ups and deep breathing. Like I like to have some quiet time before. I'm not like, I don't really want to kind of hang out and go, woo, we often do a before stage kind of get together and kind of just connect with the other musicians. But before that happens, I like to just have as much quiet, like even if it's just 10 minutes of just breathing. And because I do still get nervous. I get nervous every night. It never fails. I never know what's going to happen, but I sort of take that deep breath and walk out there. And then like 5 minutes in, it's just like, okay, all right, I'm okay. Those early jitters.
Sure.
Yeah, deep breathing is always a good idea.
Yeah, breathing is our friend. We want to keep doing that.
What about you, Harmony? Do you have any pre-show rituals?
Yeah, I'm thinking about definitely breathing and definitely some stretching out of the hands. But we, on this tour, we, for whatever reason, over the last year, or maybe more actually, pre-pandemic, we always play. We have the big Austrian curtain that's down, kind of hiding the stage, and we play September, over out through the loudspeakers by Earth, Wind, and Fire. It's kind of our, everybody on stage, including the crew and the backline guys, we all kind of dances, and it's just this moment to sort of be free and be silly, and I don't know, unless it's like a live TV or live radio or something like that. For whatever reason, I don't find myself getting nervous, which is really, really strange, because I'm, in my real life, I feel like I'm a little bit of an introvert, and so, but it's almost like acting in a way, like I can, you step into these shoes and get to kind of become this character, and and you kind of transform into this person on stage. And so I get to become this, really extroverted big person with the bass on. And I think if I wasn't holding the bass, I would be a little bit more nervous. That they'd be like, that's my, security blanket.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's funny you say that, because at the end of the day, it's like that, we are entertainers, right? We are up there kind of putting on a show and doing a thing, and it's like you put on a costume,
right?
And it's I love that idea of an alternate personality,
right?
Alter ego or something like that.
Ego, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's really fun. I love that. So
I have a quick question.
Yes.
How do I answer anybody on the chat? The people are sending some comments. Not that I don't want to split my attention too much, but just a couple of, I don't remember how to do that.
There should be at the bottom, it says post a comment. If you scroll all the way down,
I don't
in that comment section.
Yeah, I don't have it. It just comments and it just ends. Maybe there's some way that I don't know, that I've blocked myself from answering, but anyway, I'll just say to the people who are writing me comments, I do see them, and maybe I can throw in some answers to some of your questions later on. But I see you writing.
If you want to, we can answer some questions now if you want. If you're seeing them and you want to address some of these questions, absolutely, that's what we're here for. Absolutely. No, you can continue. I'll find, there's some, I have to find, there was one, I'll find it, but okay.
You can continue. I'll get back to it.
Okay. So we've talked about some of our influences musically, and since we're celebrating International Women's Month, are there any women that inspire us? Not necessarily musicians. I'm sure there are plenty of female musicians that inspire us, but just in general, anyone that inspires us as women, as we're here celebrating.
Oh boy, many, really.
And there's so many, right?
I still love Nancy Wilson of Heart, who I think I saw. I don't go on Instagram much, but I think yesterday I went and I saw she just got a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Grammys. I think her and Anne, they were huge for me, like continuing in music. And I when I was, God, I don't know, when I was 14, they played at the Tower Theater in Upper Darby, like where Bowie did the famous Tower Theater concert, which was like about 8 blocks from where I grew up. And I went to see the Little Queen tour with Barracuda. When Barracuda was out, it was like their second album, kind of. There was another one in the middle. And I snuck backstage after, like, they used to do 2 shows in those days. They did at 8 o'clock and then 11 o'clock. And I in between the shows, I went and like climbed up a fire escape. I don't even remember how I got in there, but I got in the back and I got into the dressing room, and there was Ann and Nancy and the band, and I got an autograph on the little Mead memo pad, those little memo pads that you tear the page out, very small. It was something that Nancy Wilson had, like some chord chart ideas on it. It's like she handed me her little pad, and I had to find a blank page, and she signed it, and then she gave it to Anne, and to this day it's in the frame.
Wow.
August 1977.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And so they were huge, like, just because I loved I loved rock music, but I also liked kind of I have to say my favorite music is what they would have called the 70s singer-songwriters like Carole King and Carly Simon, and the more easy listening stuff like Olivia Newton-John is one of my all-time favorite. She's not a bass player, but to me, one of the most amazing singers, the most amazing voices I have ever heard. Like, to me, I would always think if you could hear the voice of what angels actually sounded like, you would sound like her. She was just so special to me. So she was one of my idols growing up. And I did get to play with her, which was just probably the biggest thing of my whole life, to be honest. I mean, Bowie was amazing. There's no question about it. To have had a connection with an artist like him is just unbelievable. But my heart, the biggest, most amazing thing for me was working with Olivia Newton-John. To be able to play that music was just heaven. So Olivia, Ann, and Nancy still are like some of my favorite favorite women artists. Joni Mitchell, of course.
Did you get to see the Wilson sisters after that moment? Have you seen them?
I have. I met them. I think it was in 2000. Oh my gosh, must have been 2004, maybe. It was just before the last Bowie tour that we did, before he kind of came off the road. They were playing in Boston, and it's funny, the only 2 times in my life I have ever kind of, I don't even, because I'm just not that kind of person that would wield my whatever leverage I have, like to say, well, I want to, I'm Gail Ann Dorsey, and I want to go and meet Ann and Nancy after a show. So I'd say to my manager, can you tell them, that I'm coming or whatever. I did that with Ann and Nancy, and I did it with Olivia Newton-John. And so they said yes, of course. And I went to see them in Boston, I think it was, at a show. And I went and I took my autograph and I said, "There's a little girl that got kicked out of your dressing room when I was 15. Now, here I am, playing with Bowie and doing so many amazing things, and thanks to them. And they were really sweet, and they've just been great. I've seen them a few times since then now. And then after that meeting, I actually got Nancy Wilson's guitar tech as my bass tech for the last Bowie tour, which was crazy because they were winding down, and he was looking for a job, and he was like, well, I was going to ask you, and I was like, you got the job. There's no way you're not, I just want to hear heart stories,
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
It was so funny. How funny how things happen.
Full circle. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Completely.
Beautiful. Christelle, what about you? Who inspires you?
There's so many women, but I think I will choose Esperanza Spalding. Because when I was a teenager, there's no many female bass players. There's I think Esperanza Spalding, Public Conflict, and especially Gail. When she plays with David Bowie, it was just yeah. But I would choose Esperanza Spalding because it makes me more confident. The fact that I can also play bass as a man, I can also sing at the same time. But
Yeah.
sometimes, you know, there is some pressure to women who plays instruments that you have to prove every day that you can be good as men.
Yeah.
It's stupid, but it's
Exactly.
and when I saw her, it was just okay. I can do that. I can do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it was just when I listened to her first album, it was just amazing. You know, it was just this kind of feeling that you can do this. You too. You can do this. So yeah, and what also told look and feel. My daddy makes us discover a life of Jeff Beck at Crossroads Guitar. And
Yes.
I saw this little girl with the
Yeah.
same
Yep.
same hair as me. I was so happy and said, okay, I want to be like her.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Awesome.
Love that.
Yeah, so I think it's really good to have this kind of live stream, you know, to make more place to women musicians, to make inspire next generation and other persons. I think what we really need is.
Yeah, we're here. I
We
mean,
yeah.
hi.
More and more. You know, I can't even keep track of how many more women I see now, especially with where you can see Facebook and Instagram, and you see, it's so awesome because, of course, when I started, there aren't that many. There were only a handful, Susie Quattro, or you know, there were like a handful of women. But now they're just, you know, you can't, you know, you look at Saturday Night Live or whatever, and everybody's band's got a woman on the bass. You know, it's like,
Yeah,
yes, finally. And I think it's actually I think it's a great instrument for women, actually, the bass, in terms of just just our place in our I don't know what word I want to use, uh, the sort of female energy, which is very nurturing, very strong. I mean, very, very strong. And I think as women, we endure a lot of things that are natural things, but also things that come at us because of whatever, because of sexism, because of whatever, and the way that the world works. But I think, you know, the kind of I remember I was working with a Canadian artist named Jane Siberry in the late 90s. And I got to play some concerts with her, and she's just amazing. And I remember one day she looked at me and she said, "You play like a woman." And I said, is that good or bad? Like, I didn't know what she said. She said, "Well, it's a good thing. It's just something that it's hard to describe it, but there's, you know, an energy that we bring to the instruments. It's not to say that it's weaker or it's this or it's pretty or it doesn't. It's just the sort of natural core of what it means to be female in the world, and it comes through that instrument, which, like I said in the beginning, is such a huge responsibility in an ensemble, how it holds everything together and directs the piece and gives it some foundation and grounding. It's like, that's just like, it's an important thing to hear that and feel that in music, to have women in that chair, to have women on the bass in that position, to really kind of take control of the music in a way. Well, not control, that's not the right word, but I think you understand what I mean. To take the position of keeping it together, like women do. Women keep things together. We try to anyway, but you know, just the natural progression of what it means to be female, the sort of nurturing, mothering kind of, you know,
Supportive.
support. Exactly. And so sometimes I think maybe that means that maybe some of the ego is out of the way, and it's more about you know, really taking the responsibility of being the glue.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Harmony, who's inspired you on your journey?
Honestly, I'm going to say, I mean, the most important woman in my life is my mother. And she was not a musician. She actually, it's interesting because she passed away when I was 19 years old. And so I didn't really get a chance to know her as an adult. And I'd really only been playing bass for a couple of years. And I think I probably played a couple of gigs with my dad, but I was still kind of learning, and I hadn't really taken off and done a ton of things in that way. But my mom was, she was really, really a young mom. She was only 37 when she passed away, and so, but she was this. She wasn't musically inclined, but she was really the only one in our family who was kind of an artist in all these other ways. She was very, very creative. And she had me when, she was, I think, 17 or 18. And then she had my brother like 7 years later, and then another brother. And so like 10 years after that, maybe. And so I have two brothers, but we're all very, very far apart in age. Yeah. So my mom was kind of always a mom, and she was really great at that role. I just felt like she was she made all the Halloween costumes, and she made the lunches, and she, anytime I had a play at school, she made the costumes, and she was very involved in all that. But she was a seamstress, and she learned the skill from my grandmother. She'd make children's clothes, and she did this thing called English smocking, which I kind of learned a little bit through her. I can't really sew at all. Go to these little craft fairs with her when I was a little kid, and she would set up these booths and sell these children's clothes. And she was a visual artist, she was a painter, and she worked with charcoal. And so the very first tattoo that I ever got when I was 40 years old, it is her art that I have a framed piece of on my wall, and then I ended up getting another piece of her art over here on my right arm. But she's just really inspiring to me in that way, that she only made it to 37 years old, and she has all these legacies that I remember of her creativity. And even though it wasn't music at all, she was so inspiring to me in that way. And still being a mom, I don't have children. That never was my reality, but to know that she had 3 kids, and that was her job, but then also she was able to still have all these creative endeavors on the side of that are just amazing to me. So she was the most inspiring person to me, for sure.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
awesome.
really wonderful.
Beautiful.
It's like it wasn't for as long as some people have their mothers, but at least she made such an impact in a short time.
Yeah.
I say it's not the quantity of your years, but the quality of your years, really. Yes. What matters in life.
Yeah. Yes. So is there anything that you, if you were to give some advice to your younger self when you were first starting out, what do you wish you would have had? What would you have said to yourself? Advice to your younger self, starting out as a musician, or?
Oh boy, that's always a hard question.
What did you need to hear?
Never give up. Never give up, and never let anyone say to you that you're not worth it. Be happy. Be happy. Keep smiling.
Yeah, true. Oh boy, I think for me is would be to I think not be so hard on myself. I'm very critical of myself, and I think a lot of what I would say to myself now, when we talked earlier about being self-taught, I always felt like I was just inferior, and I was never going to be able to be that good, like as good as the people that I thought were amazing. The Nathan East, and all these great bass players that I do love, and Tony Levin and all those guys. It's like, because they can do all these things, and they don't make mistakes and things like that. But I would say, now I would, it's taken me a lot of years to just know that doesn't matter. I can I go back and I look at some of the things I've done, and some things I've forgotten I've done, and I go, God, I did that, and I did that, and I did that. And I go, well, it obviously was okay. And I wish I could have told myself that earlier, because I think I had a lot of stress about things and nearly didn't do a lot of things. But something in me was, which I'm grateful for, was brave enough to just jump in. You know, I got a call from David Bowie. I had never met David Bowie. How would I think I was good enough to play for David Bowie? You know, in my mind, he was one of those people like Frank Zappa or something. Like if you had that gig, it's like you're at the top echelon of like you know, you become one of these iconic players, you know, like people that have been in these guys' bands for years. And I thought, I'm not worthy of that. How is that possible? But I went for it. And instead of just going, no, don't do it, I just thought, well, I might fail, but at least I'm going to go and try. And so I would, if I go, you know, I had a lot of anxiety around all of that stuff. Even Olivia Newton-John was something that came to me out of nowhere. And because all her guys were from Nashville, and I knew, and I initially said to Andy Timmons when he called me about it, and I said to Andy, I can't do this. I can't read. He said, but you don't need to read. You're not reading music. I said, yeah, but, you know, and he's like, come on, you know, it's your girl. It's Olivia Newton-John. It's like a couple of weeks. And I was like, okay, I'll go for it. And then when I got the music, when I got the set list, which was like 38 songs, and every one of them a huge hit, I realized I knew every one of those songs already. I knew every bass line in from Magic to Xanadu. Like I listened to that music so many times and played her music over and over as a kid that I already knew that music in my head. And instead of, you know, being too afraid and just saying, no, Andy, I'm not coming, I went for it. So I would tell my younger self, you know, I would have saved myself a lot of like stomach aches and depression and tears and worry about whether I was going to fail or not. That's what I would tell myself. And if I could go back.
Yeah. What about you, Harmony?
Yeah, I'm thinking about that, and that kind of resonates with me as well. I mean, I still, I still, even now, like I'm thinking about that, like, oh, if I could go back and tell my younger self, if I could tell myself sitting here, there are still things that I would, you know, I'm wanting to go, yeah, just turn off the negative talk, whether it's, or the critical talk, whether it's from myself or from outside sources, because, you know, and there's a lot of that within myself, and it's that whole, like, I'm self-taught, am I good enough, do I belong here, you know, stuff. It's really hard when you know, because it is tough when you're sort of in this world where you think, you know, and people are telling you like, oh, everybody's going to music school and everybody knows theory and everybody can read, and everyone's like, oh, okay, well, maybe I don't belong here, you know, but and then I think it's people have a lot of statements that they make, and I think it comes from it's their own stuff, really. But I remember moving to Nashville, and I ran into this, you know, older gentleman who was in the studio, and I remember him telling me, you know, and I thought, wow, this is really not doing a good thing for me. But he was like, you know, Nashville's a 10-year town. So it was kind of that, like, hang on, sister, just like cool your jets. You got years. It's not, and I'm like, wow. And then, you know, fast forward to a year later, and I got called to audition for Kenny Chesney, and I got the gig, and you know, and I was and I didn't know, I'd never put my hands on a 5-string bass when I stepped into the audition. I rented one from SIR.
Yeah.
They're going to know, you know, and I'd never worked in-ears before, and everybody in Nashville was wearing in-ears. And so I showed up, and I had to wear these little squishy generic in-ears, and I had to sing, and I was playing this bass that was very unfamiliar. And I thought, I'm never going to get this gig. And then got the gig.
Good for you. Yeah, those are challenges for sure.
Oh my goodness.
Challenge.
So it was, all these things have been sort of a lesson to me. But if I could go back and tell my younger self, just turn all that off and just be courageous and be brave and take chances. And, you know, I learned that from a couple people in Austin. 20 years ago on stage that would just like throw you into the deep end of the pool, and you know there's no rehearsal and there's really no set list, and learning songs on the fly. And one in particular told me, one of my favorite people that I played with, he said, I don't care if you make a mistake, you know, just make it loud. Basically,
Do it a couple of times so that they think you mean it.
oh, that was intentional. Yeah. So this bravery is paramount, I think. So
saying yes to the challenges.
yes.
Also. Yeah. So why don't we take some questions now?
Someone asked me that they think my bass playing has changed much since I started playing with Matthew, the artist I'm working with M. I don't know. I don't think so. I think that the one thing that is maybe consistent in my bass playing, sometimes I wish I actually, yeah, there it is. Sometimes I wish I practice more because I don't enough, because I kind of have a lot of other things. I'm trying to write songs. I still play a little guitar. Like I don't sort of focus on just playing the bass. So I feel like I don't really progress sometimes as much as I'd like to. But what I do know that I'm comfortable with is that what I enjoy about the bass is that for me, it's like not less is more, but like I really love the idea of listening to a new artist I'm working with and finding just the right things to let them shine. Like I enjoy that. Some people, you know, maybe want to play more, or they want to express themselves more. But like the joy I love with music, whether I'm playing bass or anything, is serving the song. Like that's so much fun. I love that. Even if it's like one note that you have to do, but that one note makes the whole thing make sense, and it's just, and you just play it with all your heart, and it's like, wow, there's my part. Here it comes, doom, and I play this note, or I play this run, or that to me is like the biggest joy of playing with other musicians. And so to play with Matthew, I'm just doing that again. You know, that's what I do. I'm not, never been a fancy player. I don't have the greatest chops in the world. But I'm more just kind of focused on the whole piece of music itself and what the other players are doing and what I can do to enhance them, but stay out of their way in a way. I don't know. And with Matthew, he's such an amazing guitar player, which is what I'm so great to work to. You know, I get to hear my favorite instrument, and this guy, there's nothing he can't do on the guitar, really. So I really step back as much as possible and give him the best kind of bed to sleep in. You know, I give him the best kind of basis for him to be able to feel as free as he can be on the guitar and not be in his way or not do too many fills or not do. And I don't know that my bass playing has changed, but I still keep that same approach with Matthew, just to let him and the other musicians shine. You know, the musicians up on the top, the keyboards and the guitars, the voices, especially the voice. I think I'm a singing bass player as well as like Crystal, and I think you all of you sing, right? We all sing. Yeah. That's what I thought. But you know, so the bass to me, when I think of it also as a melodic instrument, it can do such a beautiful dance with the vocals. When you work with a singer, it's like that's another like kind of a way of thinking with the music that I enjoy. Another kind of puzzle to kind of put together. It's like, well, what bass lines can I play that are going to just work so beautifully with what the vocal is doing and never step on it, but like also be melodic, be just almost as upfront as the vocal can be. This is what I love about players like Levin Sklar and Tony Levin and Nathan as well. Nathan East, I'm speaking of. But is that they have that ability to kind of be, very melodic in their playing and really, stretch out on the instrument. And it's not just, keeping the rhythm or playing the root note,
Mm-hmm. And we have a question that goes along with this. And how can you master playing bass and singing at the same time? What are some ideas there for?
Anybody else want to go on that one?
I always think of them as two separate kind of entities, and so whenever I'm doing that, especially if it's counter, so the vocals are very different than what my hands are doing, I always sort of treat them separately and sort of go in learning whatever the vocal harmony part is first, so that I can sort of train that muscle, and then learn the bass part, and then at some point just kind of meld the two together. And that seems to work for me if I kind of think of them in two separate, as two separate entities. But I don't know if that works for you guys. But
Well, they are two separate entities. They can really be separate entities, like you said. Counter when you got to do something, a run or something, and you got another thing on the voice. The only technique I've had for this is the melding together part. Is that when I have a complicated thing to sing, and have to play the bass at the same time, I would take the music, and I would take the two parts, the vocal part and the bass part, and I get a metronome, and I would slow down the part, like whatever it was, I would almost make it half the time beat. So, and then slowly try and see how they fit together. Slowly, and then keep bringing it up to speed and bringing it up to speed. And for some unknown reason, it's like divine intervention in my mind. Once I get it up to speed and it's locked, I could go back to it a year later and I would still remember how it goes. And I don't know why. It's amazing. I'm happy about that. But once I figure it out, I go, oh, that's it. And then then it's locked in. But it's, for me, if it's really hard, it's a slow process. And over the years, the more I do it, the easier it gets to kind of get to that point of marrying the things together. But that would be my one technique I would advise you could try, is just taking it slow, and because you have to see where the things lie, where they kind of connect, and then then you can kind of maybe start to understand that sort of patting the head and rubbing it. It's hard on the bass. I mean, I started on guitar, so if things are simple and you're just playing kind of root notes and stuff, it was always easy to play bass and sing, when you're just playing some simple thing. But when you've got some crazy riff that you're playing, and then you've got to sing something on top, there was a lot of stuff like that when I was working with Lenny Kravitz, was a lot of those funky riffs, and then you got this sort of stacks of vocals on top, and it's like, oh my God, how do I do it? Take it slow.
I think that's great advice across the board for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Take it slow. Christelle, do you have any techniques that you like to use when you're singing?
Personally, when I sing and play at the same time, most of the time, I just learn the bass line first. I just try to appropriate the bass, the rhythm, the notes, the way that I have to play the song. And when I am happy with how I play the song, I learn how to sing it after. But even when I was young, I never really choose to sing at the same time to play bass. But I really like to. I really like both. So it's come to me a little bit naturally. But after, when, especially on the big gig, when I have to play some, as you know, our band is a trio. The guitar player is my brother, and the drummer is my husband.
Awesome.
So we are a trio, and when, for example, my brother have to do some solo or something like that, I have to
Hold
the
it
place as a guitarist and the bassist at the same time. So I have to really have a good bass bass before thinking about the how to sing it. And something that I do sometimes, I think about where I play the notes and where I sing the melody. You know, to searching. It's like you have to count up the back, and I have to go this note upwards.
Yeah,
Yeah, right, right.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
simple tips, but it's a good thing to do. But I most of the time I learn first bass line before singing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would start with the bass line too. You're amazing, by the way, Crystal. I hadn't really hadn't really heard of you before this, and I'm sorry that I hadn't. But I went and looked at some of your videos, and
So
you
great.
are slamming up there on stage, and just beautiful. I mean, power. Really,
Thank you.
really awesome. So great.
Oh,
Very,
thank you. I was happy.
very
I
excited.
knew you when I was really young. So if you tell me that, I was just
Oh, well,
thank you
no,
so much.
really great. I didn't realize that that was, you the other players in your band were related, husband and brother, but yeah, no, wow. It's like, wow, I want to see one of your shows. So
Yeah.
for sure, for sure.
Are you guys doing any touring?
Crystal?
Is your band touring?
No, not yet. We are in the process creation now. I think we will go to studio to make a recording, a new
Oh, cool.
album
Mhm.
after a few months. So we are just in the creation process now. But at the same time, we go to studio last year, and finally we do the mix now. So I hope we will release some of them after some 2 months, and at the same time go back to studios for the album.
And so when you write songs, do you write on bass? Do you come up with vocals first, vocal melody? What's your writing process?
I don't put some big ritual. Sometimes I just have melody on my head and I take my phone. Sometimes I write on guitar, sometimes on bass, sometimes just on Logic with the piano on the on the trackpad. But it depends on my inspiration. I feel when I try to play other instruments. I just
Just
play. I
just
just
answered that. I think you were
yeah,
talking about playing a
yeah,
little bit of
Yeah.
everything.
I
Yeah.
play guitar, and sometimes I ask my husband to teach me to play drums. But just on my favorite song, I play drums just on my favorite song, um, and um, and that's all.
Great.
Gail, what's your process? Where do you start?
Lately, I've been starting on the keyboard, even though I don't really play the keyboards. But with the advent of the computer, it just helps me to just be able to put chords together. So the most recent things I've been writing actually have been starting on the piano based. But normally, in the past, I think guitar is usually how I would start. I mean, there've been some stuff on some of my early solo albums that are very bass riff. They were, it was more, I think, more kind of funky stuff that I was doing at the time. And it kind of would stem from a cool little bass line that I thought of. But most of the time, I think most of my songs were written on the guitar, really initially, just some sort of chords. That's kind of what I would always go to. But like I said, since the computer has become such a huge part of our lives, I've started to just kind of plunk out, because I always wanted to play the piano. I always wanted to be able to sit down at the piano and sing a song, but I can't. So not yet, anyway. Maybe one day I'll actually practice enough to do that. But lately, the some things I've been working on have started on the piano. keyboard.
And Harmony, do you have a creative process that you like to start with?
No, it's funny. I was thinking about this as you guys were talking, and I just wrapped this songwriting group that a friend of mine has in Austin, and it's a super short, like every 2 weeks we would write a song for a couple months. And I think one I started on guitar, or either guitar or maybe like you were saying, Christelle, like it's amazing. The iPhone voice memo is like such a valuable tool when I'm sitting in traffic.
Oh yeah.
Wait, I like that. I'm going to forget it, and just start singing into my phone and hope
Yep.
that I can remember sort of. But so that is a super valuable tool just for coming up with melodies and words and, all that. But then, yeah, I've definitely started a bunch of songs with bass. And then, but it's funny, like I would say that I'm Gail. I don't really play keys as well. I, with the whole, I'm using Logic and I have a MIDI keyboard.
Yeah.
That's been helpful. And I've so the other instrument I would say that I'm more comfortable or the next most comfortable on would probably be drums more than even guitar. So
cool.
I'm kind of a rhythm section gal, I guess. But then I like this last song that I did for this game. I really tried to approach it as just kind of a layering and having fun in Logic. And there's actually no bass on the last song that I did. It was just kind of this drum loop with some other interesting sound effects and synth kind of stuff and some 808 kind of MIDI.
Ooh, cool.
And
love the 808.
Layered vocal parts, me just kind of singing, and it turned out to be this really wild, almost hip hoppy kind of 80s synth. I don't know. I have no idea where it came from, but I really liked it, and I've sort of enjoyed that process of kind of piecing together all these different layers in Logic, So
Logic's great.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that there's no bass on the last thing you did, because I find for me a lot of times bass comes last in a song. I'll write on guitar or piano or like work with a drum loop or something, and then the vocals and layer, and then I'm like, oh yeah, bass. What about bass? Maybe it needs bass.
Cool.
So yeah, it's like you kind of wear a different hat. You're working a different part of your brain. So.
Yes.
So yeah.
What are you doing now, Ava? Are you out on tour now? Are you working on a tour or your own stuff? Are you working with someone?
Yes, I'm writing another record of my own, another solo record. So I'm doing that. But I'm also gearing up to go out with Pink. We're starting rehearsals, and she's doing a big summer run in Europe. And
wonderful.
So yeah, she's gearing up for another big tour. And I actually write while I'm on tour. I bring a recording rig with me. So, so like technology, like we were saying, we're lucky we have it, and you can fit a studio into a laptop bag. And
yes, you can.
Lucky for that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope I get to check. I would love to see the Pink tour. I've never seen her live, and she's a Philly girl like me, right?
That's exactly right. We're coming to Paris, so if you're there,
I'm gonna see if the dates work out. Yeah, I would love to see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's incredible. I think I was in San Diego whenever that was, like 4 or 5 years ago, and it was. I mean, you guys, incredible. She's incredible. The band's incredible. Everything about it. I highly recommend it.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna do my best. If I don't catch it there, I don't know, catch it somewhere.
Somewhere, yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you all so much for being here today. What a special,
what a pleasure,
special thing.
Good old Ampeg keeping us running.
Yes, Ampeg, yep.
Keeping us there. Yeah, I mean, well, for me, greatest bass amp. I've tried many different. Well, I've had. Sometimes I don't have the choice, and I've tried other bass amps, and it's just nothing really compares. Really, it's just a sort of. It's the.
That's our support, right? That's our foundation.
It really is. It really is, and of course, and an amp is really important, especially for bass, because it's it's powerful.
Yeah,
it's moving a lot of air, and you really want and tone is so important, and all of us have different tones. It's in our fingers, it's in our, like, it's in our heart, like how our sound like manifests. But when you know, and the amplifier is super important on the bass, to be able to articulate what you want to have. And I think the Ampeg has always been just sort of the mothership of bass amps for forever, for as long as I can remember. And I'm just so grateful to have worked with them for so long, and they've just been great. And I'm rocking the new the 610 cabinet.
Oh, I love the 610.
Oh, cool.
So cool, you know, just that one less than the coffin, as we used to call it, the 8x10.
Yeah.
Huge thing to drag around. But the 610 sounds so sweet, and I've tried many different SVTs over the years, but I guess the last 20 years has just been the SVT VR.
Yeah.
The VR. Yeah, I love the VR.
It's the basic. Can't beat that.
What do you other ladies using?
That's the same. Yeah. SVT VR.
The VR. The 810.
With the fridge.
The full fridge.
Yeah.
The same. The
The
same.
same. Too.
Exactly the same.
It's unanimous, folks.
Yes.
Yeah. SVT tone.
Yeah, you can't go wrong.
It's like, it's the way a bass is supposed to sound to me in my heart, my ears.
That's right. Exactly.
It feels like home. Yeah.
It feels like home.
Exactly.
And sounds like home.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they hear us play and they don't know it, but it feels like home to them too.
That's right. That's right.
Right on. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm really thrilled to have been here with you women. You are all incredible and very inspiring to me, and so
Yes.
thank you so much. It's been great to hear everybody's stories, and just feel connected, because we're certainly connected through music, and that's a beautiful thing.
Very empowering.
Beautiful.
Thank you all for what you do.
Yes.
Appreciate you.
Likewise.
Thanks everybody for joining us out there.
Yeah, sorry.
Questions.
If we didn't get around to so many questions, but I hope that everybody had a good time.
Yeah.
Cool.
All
right. Thank you all. Happy International Women's Life.
Yes, and be safe out there on the road, everybody.
Yes.
Okay, bye now.